Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our morning session of Cost and Management Accounting subject. Very good morning to everyone present over here. Yes, Almas, Priyanshi, Mahalakshmi, Sunil, everybody. Very good morning. Now, we are here with a very important subject, both from the perspective of exams, secondly, from the perspective of the practice area of this subject of cost and management accounting. So whoever from you are aspiring to be consultants in this particular field, budgetary control is one of the most, I'll say most important topics. As we all know, every company, every business is based on budgets. There is no business, in fact, even our daily home workings are based on the budgets that our parents prepare. And many times you'll find that you get the reference of this budgets in your house. Whenever you are demanding something extra, something more, many times parents say that this is out of budget or this is not planned or this cannot fit in our budget. Now, what is this budget? We all understand budget as a very generic term. Generic in the sense we all have been using this term regularly. One second, students, there is some problem. Okay. So we have been using this term budget very regularly. Now, in very simple and plain words, what is budget? Budget is an estimate. Estimate of what? Estimate of anything that you are planning to do in future. Most importantly, we misunderstand budget to only mean financial. However, in a business scenario, like a company, a manufacturing organization, even all service sector organizations, budgets are not confined to the financial estimates or financial figures. In fact, budgets are more dependent on the quantitative aspects and quantitative figures. Like in terms of a manufacturing entity, a budget will always include how much quantity to be produced, how much quantity of raw material to be consumed and eventually to be purchased. So first, in fact, the quantitative aspects are budgeted. The quantitative values are forecasted. And then on the basis of these quantitative aspects and quantitative values, we budget the financial values. So once I know how much raw material is to be purchased or consumed, from that I can compute how much would be my purchase budget or how much would be my raw material consumption budget. Once I budget how many labor hours I'll require for a particular production, on that basis, I will be able to budget my labor cost. Similarly, sales, first I'll budget the quantity to be sold, and on that basis, I'll find out the sales value. So this is what is very important about budgeting first part. So budget is both, it is quantitative and it is financial both. Now, when we talk about budgets, I'll come to all these things later on. Broadly, the budgets are divided into two categories. One is fixed budget, one is flexible budget. This is one categorization. The other categorization is functional budget and master budget. Now, what is fixed and flexible difference? When I prepare a budget assuming one level of activity only, that the production would be 1 lakh, sales would be accordingly. In that particular case, all my budgets, entire business budgets are linked with one level of activity, which is a fixed budget. But many times in today's business scenario, no one can be sure that this would be compulsory or sales. This can be expected, but you have 2, 3 more expectations that if this happens, this much would get sold. If this happens, if this type of scenario happens tomorrow, if this Russia-Ukraine escalates and eventually converts into a bigger war type of a situation, this would be my budget. If things favor, If Trump also reduces tariff, if our India-China, Russia relations develop, this could be the budget. So in today's scenario, there cannot be one single level on which you can heavily rely on. So in order that I have two, three or more options in front of my eyes, or rather than options, I'll take scenarios that if this happens, this will be the position. If this happens, this could be the position. Then we prepare budget for multiple scenarios. Obviously, multiple scenario means multiple levels of activity. Then the same budget is called as a flexible budget. So one differentiation, fixed budget versus flexible budget. Second differentiation is we say functional budget versus master's budget. Now, whenever you are preparing these budget, whether under the fixed category that is single activity or multiple activity that is flexible, the second thing comes is what budgets you are preparing. So broadly, two types of budgets are prepared, functional and masters. Now, as the name suggests, functional budget means where you are preparing individual budget of sales, of production, of material, of labor, of remaining overhead expenses. It becomes a functional budget. And when you have a summary of these budgets in the form of budgeted P&L statement, budgeted cash flow, that becomes your master's budget. So functional is independent function budget. Masters is a summary of these functions put in a particular format like profit and loss or in the form of cash and bank balance or cash and bank financial structure. So when you combine these budgets, functional budgets, into some other meaningful budget, which is combining multiple figures, that is a master's budget. Now, today we are going to start with the fixed budget category, and within fixed budget, we'll be doing functional and also masters. Now, as you all know, in functional budgets, we have sales, we have production, we have raw material, both firstly consumption, then purchase, and then we have labor, and then we have the other overheads budget. So all these are functional budgets, and then the summary of these budgets could be in the form of master's budget, which could be your budgeted income statement. It could be your cash bank budget. So broadly, these are the budgets. We'll first start with the functional budgets, which could be sales, production, raw material, both consumption, purchase, labor. Now, as usual, I'll ask few questions to you all. So I want your inputs. My first question is, all these functions, raw material purchase, labor, production, sales, maybe even finance, are these functions interlinked or they are independent? They have no connection with one another. Tell me. Interlinked or independent? Okay. Julie says interlinked. Mahalakshmi says interlinked. Rather, everyone is saying interlinked. Pooja, Jaindra, Alma, Sunil, Anil. Good. And that is the right answer. Shiv, Prem, super. So, first answer you all have identified correctly. Now, the second one is the main question. So, are these budget interlinked? 100%. Now comes the second question. If these are interlinked, then one budget has to be the starting point and the other budgets would be linked to that budgets and prepared. So example, either I'll first budget sales, I'll find out sales, let us say it comes to 1 lakh. And then for that, I will do production, material purchase, labor acquisition, etc. Or let us say I first budget production, then on the basis of that production, I will target my sales, I will target my material purchase, I'll target my labor acquisition. It means since these are interlinked, now what is very important is deciding which budget would be the first budget, that is the starting point. So my question is, out of these functional budgets like sales, purchases, obviously purchases of raw material, production, even finance. Which one is the starting point? So you will prepare which budget first? Okay. Rohan says material, Mahalakshmi finance, Prem says purchase, Almas purchase, Jaindra purchase. Okay. Meenu says sales, Naina is purchase. Okay. Pooja says maybe production and sales also, but that maybe means what? See, you have to have one figure first because that figure will be linked and will be deciding the other figure. So you have to decide one. Wow, Shiv is saying, I think firstly we have to plan the business. So we are planning only, beta. And in business, when you say planning business, it means planning these things only because business runs on all these functions only. That is what exactly we are doing. Okay, Priyanshi says finance, production, Julie says, Shiv says now purchase. Rohan, see, cost of production cannot be the starting point because it will be a summary of raw material costs, labor costs, overheads costs. So I don't think it can be a starting point. Pooja says sales. Okay. So in short, we have got answers for all budgets. So some feel that it is purchase, some feel it is sales. The answer is correct. Any of these budgets can be the starting point. But having said this, the question is this answer is incorrect, or uh, I'll not say it is incorrect or correct, but this answer is not giving me the starting point. Because when I sit to budget, let us say for the coming quarter or for the coming half year, starting from 1st October, how will I know what to do? So the answer is any of these functions can be the starting point, but the criterion is which function is the most limited, means everything has some or the other limitation, like sales up to particular quantity can be sold, not beyond that. Obviously, with some variation in marketing and all, you can increase, but again, that will have a limitation, and that is where you have flexible budgets. With marketing extra cost this much, with this extra discount this much, so that will come in flexible. But for the timing, let us say we are going by one quantity because we are discussing fakes. So there could be sales up to a certain level. Similarly, production, you have something called as production capacity. And depending on the area I have, depending on the number of machines I have, beyond which I cannot produce because that is my production capacity. Now, when I say this is my production capacity, then the answer or then the point rather is I have a limitation on production. Same thing could be with raw material. Same thing could be with labor. Everything's availability has some limitation. And finance, obviously, we all know is the biggest challenge always. And that is where we chartered accountants come into picture, where we should be able to plan their finances in such a manner that the company should be able to utilize all other resources to the fullest. Finance should never be their restriction. Now, having explained this, that all functions have some restriction, all of these functions are limiting factor. Limiting factor means creating some limitation. Now, the key point, pay attention. Out of all these, whichever is having the highest limitation to the extent that it limit others activities. Example, if I can produce up to 1 lakh, but I can sell only up to 75,000, so sales become a bigger limiting factor. However, If the raw material availability is such that I'll be able to produce only 70,000, not even 75, so raw material availability becomes even a bigger limitation. So I will have to identify out of all these limiting factor, which one is the greatest limiting factor, and I will start with that budget, which is the greatest limiting factor, which is also called as the key factor. And since it is the starting point of the budgeting process, it is called as principal budget factor. These are one line theory questions. Key factor, principal budget factor. In fact, in your subject or chapter of marginal costing, this key factor analysis is again discussed, and the same point comes from there, that whichever factor, maybe raw material, maybe machine, or maybe labor, which is creating a bigger limitation, is called as my key factor. And then basis the key factor, I do all the calculations. Fine. Is your marginal costing done? I don't remember our schedule. So I don't recall whether marginal costing was before this or after this. Acha. So since it is not done, or else you will get this particular, or you would have already got this particular field. So no worries, when you'll do marginal costing, again in marginal costing, this concept of key factor will come into picture and play, because in marginal costing also we are going to take decisions about production, decisions about which product should be given priority. And over there also, all the calculations are linked with the limiting factor, which is the greatest limiting factor, which we call as the key factor. So, Shiv, I am repeating because this is what I'm explaining, that what is the starting point of your budget? The starting point of budget is budgeting that factor out of all the factors, or we will obviously first estimate all the factors, but the starting point of your budget will be that budget where any one of the factor is the greatest limiting factor. So that will be your starting point. And that factor can be sales, that factor can be purchase, means raw material, or that factor can be machine availability, labor availability. Whichever is the greatest limiting factor, you start the budgeting process with that factor, and that is what is called as the key factor or the principal budget factor. So Shiva, I hope you got the answer, right? So let us start our today's working part. So we are first dealing with fixed budgets. And within fixed budgets, we are going to study both functional and master's budget, correct? But to start with, obviously, before you prepare or you can prepare master's budget, you have to prepare your functional budgets. So we are starting with the functional budgets. And as I just explained, out of all the functional budgets, which budget has to be prepared first, which is having the greatest limiting, which is called as your key factor or the principal budget factor. Now, for all practical purposes in this chapter, your starting point would be sales. Sales is presumed in this chapter to be the principal budget factor, which will be obviously given. The sales budget would be given. From sales budget, we will estimate our production. From production, we will estimate all the other costs and requirements like raw material, labor, and other expenses which are overheads. Now, important, sales budget is in quantity plus in value. So what it means, that sales, you determine how much quantity would be sold, and then you'll also estimate the selling price, because we all have studied in economics the price demand relation, the price supply relation. So using that particular analogy, you will determine that for this level of price, this would be the sales quantity. So multiplying both, you'll get the sales value. Production budget would be only in units. So production is only units. Raw material budget will be first, you'll estimate the raw material consumption requirement. On the basis of consumption, you'll estimate the purchase requirement. Consumption will be only in quantity that will estimate or will prepare. Once we go from consumption to purchase, the purchase would be again in quantity plus value, because again over here the demand supply concept comes, that whatever is the price that you will get, that depends upon the quantity that you will be placing order for. So here quantity, and on the basis of the price that you get for that quantity, you can bargain for that quantity, the purchase value. Similarly, labor quantity, quantity means hours, and plus the wages, that is the labor cost. Overheads will only be cost. Now, generally for the purpose of exams, since this will be given, you have to determine or calculate the production budget. On the basis of production, you have to calculate raw material, both. This is at times asked, not always, and this is generally not asked in the paper. Now, after you have budgeted all these, then you go to the production cost budget, which obviously would be made up from this only. So once you have estimated the inputs, on the basis of the inputs required like raw material, labor, etc., you will budget the production cost. Then we are also asked to find out our cash budget. Again, this you study even in the subject of FM, that is financial management, because there also, in fact, since we are planning finance only in that subject, so financial planning requires budget. So cash budget you study even there also, and the everything is same. Few adjustments plus minus. Here more adjustments are from the costing angle. Over there more adjustments are from the financial angle. But the format, the concept, everything is same. I hope everything is clear. And at the end, we prepare our budgeted P&L. So I should say budgeted income statement, which is again not asked in our exams. So our exams basically ask us to prepare production budget, raw material budget. This is always, this is at times, and then this is again at times. And you may exclusively get a question of cash budget. Now, fixed budgets are where you have done all this for only one level. Then the second will be flexible, that will be dealing with in the next class. Today we will focus only on fixed, both types of budgets, that is functional and master. I hope everything up to this point is clear, because from here I will be moving on to the practical part. Anybody wants to take a screenshot of this, you may take a screenshot. Fine. Any questions, students? Clear. Good. Now, yes, Priyanshi. So see, I'm trying to now link. See, now we have reached a level where definitely you are well versed with the subjects. You are now good in concepts. So my endeavor is also to link different subjects, because see, practically in your profession, now when you'll join articles, you will experience this. Generally, we are not only looking at one subject. Like here in exams, we are solving only one subject sums. So if it is costing paper, you'll solve a particular question from costing angle only. But in real life, as a chartered accountant, we have to do multidisciplinary functions or multidisciplinary services we have to give, where for the same case, I have to look at it from the income tax angle, from the GST angle, maybe from the FM angle. These three things we do regularly. And then obviously we are asked to do auditing of the same thing. And at times we have to also look at it from the costing and the law angle. And that is why all these subjects are the core subjects of our syllabus. I'm not mentioning accounts because accounts is the basis from where all these things originate, because without accounting, you will not get the data to do all the other things. So accounting is the basis for everything. Fine. Now, in the budgets that we have to now deal with, let me tell you The solving is the most simple thing we are going to do. We will require only three functions on your calculator: plus, minus, multiply. At times, instead of multiply, you will do divide. Nothing beyond that. No other function will require. The table that we are going to follow is standardized, is repetitive. So even the formats will not change. It is more like your FM, but FM, I believe, is more stringent calculations. This chapter is very methodical, very standardized. The only challenge is reading the question, understanding what is given, and most important, capturing the right data. If you miss to capture the right data, the problem will happen. So that is where, and see, this is not only with this chapter, this is with every subject, every chapter. Wherever you have practicals and case study, the first on the foremost aspect is understanding the data. And when I say understanding the data, it means what facts are given and what is asked in the paper. Many times students miss this very important aspect, what is asked. This mistake even I committed. I read the question. I did not focus more on what is asked. And I had some preconception that, okay, this chapter belongs to this. It was belonging to that chapter only. But I was not very minutely reading what is asked in the question. So I solved the paper. And when I came back and read the question again, finally, I found that the workings which I've done are irrelevant. So I wasted my 20 crucial minutes of the paper. This happened with me at the inter level. This is what I understood from a practical experience. So I'll request that please read minutely. Many times it happens that when you start reading a question, it appears that, okay, I know this question is from this chapter and these are the answers. Many times you even recall the answer because you have practiced it so many times. And there are questions which are repetitive with figures. Now, in that particular case, you immediately jump in the exam scenario because you want to save your time, so-called save your time. You directly jump to solving. I will request that you first read minutely. See, at the end of the question, required is given 1, 2, 3, 4, or A, B, C. Please read the requirement very minutely. The data, the entire question may be copy paste, but at times the requirements change. So that is where you have to be very minute. Now, even though sales budget is not asked, but I'm giving you sales budget format for two reasons. One, it may be asked. See, you never know. I'm not giving you a final answer that sales budget will always be given, but as I said, it is a presumption in this chapter. But at times, if they ask from the basis of data given, you should be able to prepare sales budget, which is very simple. Second, this you may require in the chapter of marginal costing because, as I said in this chapter, the presumption is that sales is the most limiting factor. In marginal, it is exactly opposite. In marginal costing chapter, when you go to this particular part of key factor analysis, which is called there, and when you solve the sums over there, you will find that material or labor or machine has become the key limiting factor. And since it has become the key limiting factor, on that basis, you have to determine the sales. So over there, on the basis of material labor availability, you determine how much quantity of different products can be sold. So indirectly, what you are doing is you are forecasting the sales. And at times, that chapter may link with this chapter and say that, okay, on the basis of this, you first determine the sales mix, which is the sales forecast, and then prepare sales budget, production budget, material budget. So from marginal costing key factor analysis, the question may drive you to budgeting chapter. So that is why I'm also giving you the sales budget. Now, students, we all know that all table, all formats will have compulsorily the first column as particulars. Fine. Now, the only confusion that at times students have is, sir, there is confusion in the format because I'm not able to understand and recall what columns have to be drawn. So pay attention. I'm giving you a simple tip of remembering or understanding what would be the format, means what would be the columns. The answer is columns will be of that item of which the budget is. I repeat, columns would be of that item, that factor of which the budget is, right? Now, if the budget is of sales, sales happens of products. If the budget is of production, production happen of products. So my columns should be of my different products. Many times in the sum, you may be given 2 or 3 products, X, Y, Z, A, B, C. So I repeat my line. The columns would be of that particular thing, that particular item of which you are preparing the budget for. So if you are preparing the budget for product, which is sales is also for product, production is also for product, your column should be your products. But when you go to raw material consumption, raw material purchase budget, you are preparing the budget for raw material. So your columns would now be MN, which is raw materials. See, in the same subject, in the same question, you are given product ABC data also and material M, material N data also. That is where the confusion starts, that whether I should prepare columns in this budget of ABC or of M and N. The answer is you prepare the columns of that item for which the budgeting is done. So sales budgeting is done for what? Sales is always of product. Production is always of product. So your column should be ABC. But where consumption budget and purchase budget is prepared, purchase and consumption is of raw material. So columns would be M and N. Similarly, when you are preparing the labor budget or labor cost is of labor. So the columns would be skilled, semi-skilled. Correct? So first rule about the columns is columns would be of that item of which the budget is. But having said this, there is one more point in the column. You are always asked, always, to prepare monthly budgets for, let us say, first 6 months. Or they will say annual budget, but quarterly, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So it means the budgets are, all the budgets are required to be prepared for particular periods, which may be particular months or maybe particular quarters. Rarely the budget is saying that, okay, I want only annual. But generally in this, specifically in the functional budgets, the figures or the budgets that are asked is monthly, quarterly. So remember one thing, the first rule for columns is that you will first prepare the columns, the main columns I should say, for the periods for which the budget is required. So if the periods are different months, they will say April to September, or let us say they will say from October to December, or they will say Jan to March, whatever. Columns will be for those periods. Or if they are asking quarter wise, quarter wise. So let us say I'm assuming that the budget is asking me to present the data quarter wise. So the periodicity is quarters. In that particular case, my columns are for quarters, and then the rule which I just said, you will prepare, now here it will be sub columns for what? For that item for which the budget is. So if the budget is for sales, I will prepare sub columns of my products. Let us say I have 2 products, A, B. So in every quarter, A and B, in every quarter, A and B, so that I can put here the sales. Now, first in sales, what will come? The budgeted quantity of sales. So I will get the figures for first quarter, for second quarter, for third quarter, and so on. Then you would be given your budgeted selling price for each respective quantity of sales that you will put here. Let us say capital A. And when you multiply this quantity by price, you will get the budgeted sales value. Simple. So as I said, calculations are simple. Budgeting is entirely very simple. No special working, special formula, nothing required. But formats, and mainly focus on the content of the question. Now, this, as I said, is always given in the sum. It may be given in some tabular form like this, or it may be simply given in some paragraph form with the same details, mainly the details that are given, or I'll say that are necessary for us for preparing our further budgets is the sales quantity figures, right? So in the exam question, you have to identify this. Now, on the basis of this sales quantity, the first budget that we will be preparing is my production budget, right? Now, if they have mentioned the period for which this budget is, let us say for the year or something, you'll mention for the year or for the period, whatever is given. Now, as I said, your columns would depend upon the periodicity for which the budget is asked. I'm assuming the question is asking budget quarterly. What would be sub columns? Again, it would be A and B, which are my products because production is of products. So our rule, budgets are prepared for what? For that item for which the budget is, for that you will prepare the columns. Now, having made the format, now comes the most important point. What is that important point? That important point is now I need to determine or find out my production quantity. How to determine that? My starting point would be the sales figures given. So I will start with budgeted sale quantity. So I don't want value because production would be always measured in quantity. So I will start with sales quantity. So AA, BB, AA, BB, and so on. Now, very simple, nothing very special, nothing very difficult about production budget. How will you find out production quantity for every quarter, for every product? The answer is simply remember your trading account. In trading account, you have opening stock, which is obviously of finished goods. If you're a manufacturer, from your manufacturing account, you get the manufacturing cost. It means you get the production. You have closing stock, which is again of finished goods. And you have sales, which is of finished goods. Now, don't look at this trading account from your accounting angle. That is, don't visualize the values. Visualize quantities. So just visualize that I have put these quantities. Now, if I have put these quantities, I have to find out this quantity which is missing. Now, I'm sure you all will understand and appreciate this, that the total of these two and the total of these two will match. There will be no difference at all. Correct? No? In trading account, we get GP as a difference because we are taking values where sales is at selling price and the remaining things are at cost. That is why you get the difference as your GP. Here, if I'm saying I'm taking only quantities, then mathematically this will tally. Now, if you understand this, then you'll easily understand that if production quantity is missing, how to find out that? It will be sales plus closing minus opening. The same thing I'll put here in tabular form. So plus my expected or desired. Now these are just terms used. Closing stock. So how much closing stock I wish to keep at the end. That is what is my expected or desired closing stock minus opening stock. Now remember, all this is of finished goods because we are dealing with production and sales. So sales quantity plus the closing stock quantity plus the minus the opening stock quantity will give you as a final result your production quantity. So I get my budgeted production by this simple format, this simple concept and ideology of trading account. Is this clear to all students? Have you understood this? How we find out production budget or how do we calculate the production quantity? Yes, everyone? Clear? Anybody having any doubts or questions? No? Excellent. Now, from production, we'll prepare material budget also. But before that, let me take a simple question for your understanding, right? So, chalo, this is the format. I'll curate my own question. I'll give it to you so that you can easily solve and do a mechanical practice. So I hope you know, understood this. So I'm giving you my own curated question for simple practice. So let us say the question is like this. It says budgeted sales for X and Y. These are your products. The question is giving you budgeted sales quarter wise, 40,000, 60,000, 50,000, 70,000, 65,000, 75,000, and 55,000 and 80,000. Then it says closing stock, again quarter wise, 8,000, 10,000, 10,000, 16,000, 12,000, 15,000, and let us say 9,000. And then it says opening stock at start of the year, opening stock at start of the year, 15,000, 18,000. So all these are quantities given. You are required to prepare production budget for each quarter. I hope the data is clear. Just for a mechanical practice, I have simplified the data without any language part. That will go when we deal with the exam questions. So this is just for practice of the format. Start doing that. If you want, I will keep the format also here. Okay. So the format and the data both are together. Yes, students, have you landed with something? Okay. Mahalakshmi has given me first set of answers for product X. Others. I'm just writing down Mahalakshmi's answers so that others can check from this. And if there are variations, you can inform me. See, these are in thousands. Huh? So when I'm writing 33, I mean 33,000, 45,000, 65,000, 49,000. Okay, Priyanshi has given me the other part also. So I'm writing down Priyanshi's answer. 6. I think there is a variation in Priyanshi's answer and the answers that I've put. 6. This is for the other product. Okay, Mahalakshmi has given me answer which is different. Okay. Priyanshi, I'm having a different set of answers from Mahalakshmi. Here it is 68. Here she is giving me 72. And here she is giving me 33. So these are quarter-wise answers. Students, please check and confirm. In the meantime, I'm writing the solving the question here for everybody's benefit in case you have some doubt. So 40, 60, 50, 70, 65, 75, 55, and 80. So these are the budgeted sales quantity. Then you have the closing stock. So it is 8, 10, 10, 16, 12, 15, 9, 11. And then you are given the opening stock at the start of the year. Start of the year means obviously it is also opening stock of quarter 1. So start of the year is quarter 1, end of the year is quarter 4. Keep these small things in mind. So 15, 18. Now, to this extent, the data is given. Now, what is not given is this data, but that is not at all difficult. The closing of the previous quarter becomes opening of the next quarter. Closing of the first quarter becomes opening of the second quarter, correct? Similarly, closing of the second quarter will become opening of the third quarter. And similarly, third quarter's closing should become opening, right? Now cross-check the answers. I'm having different answers now. At least I'm getting different answers than what you all have given me here. So 50 plus 10 minus 8, I'm getting 52. 70 plus 16 minus 10, I'm getting the 76. 75 plus 15 minus 16, I'm getting 74. Here I'm getting 52. And here I'm getting 76. Please confirm. So these are, I think, Priyanshi's answer. Yes, these are Priyanshi's answers. So my answers are aligning with Priyanshi. 50 to 76. Okay, perfect. I hope everybody understood this. Any doubts with the formatting part, students? Yes, everyone. Formatting clear. Basic structure of production budget clear. Quarter 3 is 67, correct. That is typo error from my end. It is 67, right? Okay, done. Should I proceed? Okay, now, now we first solve question 2. And question 2, they have asked raw material purchase budget and all. That will do. But before that, in question 2, we'll first solve the first part. Now, what is the data given? The following are the estimated sales of a company for the 8 months ending on this date. Fine. So from April to November, the data is given. So it is comprising 8 months. Importantly, there are no two products. So the data given is of a single product. So it is even better for us. So single product is there, no two products are there. Fine. Now the question to be addressed or the important point to be kept in mind is what does the language says? As a matter of policy, the company maintains closing balance of finished goods and of raw materials as follows. Right now, I'm not dealing with the raw material part, so I'm only dealing with the finished goods part. Now, in the example which I had given, you were given the ready-made figures of stocks, which is one type of question that you will get. Second type of question that you will get is this question where they are not giving you the quantities of stock. Rather, they are giving you the stock in a particular language type of adjustment. Not difficult at all, but you need to be focused. So what it says? It says the policy of the company is to maintain closing stock in this fashion. So for finished goods, what is the policy? Closing stock will be 50% of what? Of next month's sales. This is also very logical. Why I'll tell you. Because if you have expected or projected sales of next month of a particular quantity, let us say we are saying sales for the month of June, which has just started. Now I am budgeting at the start of the year, I had budgeted that in June, I'll have sales of 50,000 quantity. Now please understand students, in June, production will take time for June, whatever production I'm planning, that will take time. But if I want to do sales immediately on day one, that is 1st June, 2nd June, 3rd June, that cannot be done with the current month's production because that may take some time. There would be some lead time of production, which may be 4 days, 7 days, 10 days. So till then, how will I make sales in June? Obviously from the opening stock of June, which is nothing but closing stock of May. So May's closing stock is decided on the basis of sales of June. That is what is a very common adjustment given in the questions. So this is the second type of sum that you get relating to production budget, where the stock are not given in quantitative terms, they are given in language terms. Fine. This part is dealing with raw materials. So for the time being, I'm ignoring it. Like raw material stock, they have given something and then they have said every unit of production will require 2 kgs of raw material. So you can understand this will be required for estimating the raw material consumption. Now, what are we supposed to prepare? Pay attention. As I said, you have to be very pinpointed when you are reading the requirement. So prepare the production budget. Obviously, it has to be in units. Then the purchase raw material budget, which will be in both, fine. For the half year ending 30th September. Now the data is given for October, November also. But the budget has to be prepared for the half year ending from April to September. Correct? So let us do this. So we are solving question 2. In question 2, I am preparing production budget for 6 months. April 25 to September 25. Particulars and then months. April, May, June, July, August, September. Format same. Format is you have budgeted sales quantity plus desired closing stock minus opening stock. You can write in bracket for your relevance that we want figures only of finished goods, because now you will be having also raw material figures, so it should not get mixed up. So I'll get production quantity, right? What are my sales? 12, 13, 9, 8, 12, 13, 9, 8, 12, 13, 9, 8, 10, 12. Now, the question asked me to prepare budget only up to September. I'm just adding one more column. Why? That you'll realize when we'll study the raw material budget. So for raw material, I need this extra column. So I'm adding October just for my calculation. So it is 14. Now, students, tell me the closing stock, because now that is what is the adjustment of this sum. Tell me the closing stock. Chalo, you have the data in front of you. I'm sure everybody has downloaded the sheet. I had already uploaded it. So you can give me the month-wise closing stock as per the required. Rohan, but I just mentioned I've already given this sheet. You are not following the portal. It means it is uploaded quite in time. Okay. Give me closing stocks. Okay. Prem has given. See, how much is closing stock, students? It is simple. Read this language. It is 50% of the sales of next month. Simple. So whatever is next month's sales, you take 50% of that. Correct. Prem, Almas, good. Give me for all 7 months, including October. Perfect, Priyanshi. So for April, my closing stock will be half of May. For May, my closing stock will be half of June. Right? This is what the language says. So it is 6.5. It is 4.5. Simply, see, I have to do half of my next month's sales. Half of my next month's sales. Half of my next estimated sales. And then for October, I will see November is 12,000. So half of 12,000 is 6. Superb. Now, students, the most interesting part, opening stock. Previous month's closing is next month's opening, correct? No challenge. Challenge is here. What is the opening stock of first quarter? Give me the opening stock of first quarter. This is the only, according to me, the point that has to be focused in case of this language driven stock adjustment sums. Wow. Anil is saying, sir, can we take balancing figure? Anil, go ahead. Give me the balancing figure. If you are saying, can we take balancing figure? Go ahead. Give me the balancing figure. What is the balancing figure? Which balancing figure you are talking about, Anil? No balancing figure is there because even production is not known. We have to, in fact, find out production. Had production known, I would have found out opening. But here, production is also missing. Chalo, apply your brains. So, Anil, how will you find out production? In fact, we are doing this to find out production. Okay, I've started getting answers. Mahalakshmi, Jaindra. Good. Your answers are correct. Perfect. Chalo, others, apply your brains. There is something in the question itself, some trick, some small insight, I'll say. How can Rohan sales equal opening stock? Yes, Jaindra, you are right. Why assume, Rohan? Can you assume anything in the sum? So if you're not able to find out something, you'll assume, but then the sum will change and everybody will assume different. But if the sum has given me, why I'll assume? If sum is clear, why I'll assume? Yes, Mahalakshmi, you're right. Mahalakshmi, Jaindra have given me the perfect answers. See, what does the policy says? It says, I will maintain closing stock, which is half of next month's sales. Now see this. What you did for April, May's sales were 13. So you took half of this, which became 6.5. And this 6.5 became opening of May again. So this is the catch or the trick. What is the point? Same thing you would have done even in the month of March, which is not here, which is not required. You would have taken half of April sales as the closing stock of March. And this closing stock will become opening stock of April. In other words, if you observe, keep April aside for the time being. For all other months, how much is opening? Half of the same month's sales. Why? Because of the policy given in the question. Correct, na? Simple, na? So remember this, in this language driven adjustment question, they will never give you opening stock of first month, first quarter. Why? Because that you can very well derive from the policy of the company. Your first month's sales, half is your previous month's closing, and that closing would become opening of the first month of the first quarter, whatever it is. Yes, Prem. So now you have got it. I hope others have also understood this. So I'll get my final answer of April production also. Correct? Yes, Neha, you're also right. Students, did you get this language adjustment point? Everybody understood this? No doubts, no questions. Great. So these are the two types of questions that you get relating to production budget. One, this type, where the data is given, the closing stock or opening stock data is given in numbers. Second, where it is given in language. So from language, you derive the numbers, which is not at all difficult. And the only, you can say, hidden adjustment in your language is what will be the opening stock of the first month or first quarter. That will always be like this. No assumptions required. Fine, students? Perfect. Everybody understanding everything, right? Good. So should I proceed, students, with the next budget, which is after production, as I had given you this. From production, we determine our other input costs, raw material, labor, overheads. And then after we have determined this, from this, we can prepare our production cost budget. So now from production, we go to our raw material budget. But what you are saying, July is what, 9,000? What is 9,000, beta? You are saying for July production is 9,000. Okay. ठीक है. Correct. So production 9,000. You are right, beta. ठीक है. Now, after we have determined the production budget, so you have understood the format. Now we go to the material. Now in material, we determine the budget in two parts. Firstly, it is raw material consumption budget. And then we go to the raw material purchase budget. Again, what is the rule? Firstly, my columns would depend upon the periodicity for which the budget is required to be presented. So again, same example, periodicity is quarters. So same like production budget, which is this example which I was giving. My raw material budgets, first consumption, then purchase, both will have firstly the columns for the periods, which over here I'm assuming that the question requires you quarterly, right? Now, once I have done this, I will prepare or find out how much should be the raw material consumption for each period. But before this, now here comes the difference. When I was preparing production budget, after the period columns, I had the columns for my products. Within each period column, I had the columns for my products. Why? The rule which I gave you is what should be my columns? It should be of that item, that factor for which the budget is. Now, production budget and sales budget are for products. So these columns are for products. But now, raw material consumption budget and raw material purchase budget is for raw material. So my columns, let us say I require two materials, M and N. So M and N, my columns would be like this. So remember this rule, because this is where many times we as students get confused as to now you are taking A and B, suddenly and now you have shift to M and N. There is no confusion. Since this is raw material related budget, whether consumption or purchase, I have to take the columns for the raw materials, right? Now, please understand what we are doing. We are determining how much raw material M would be consumed in quarter one. How much raw material N would be consumed in quarter one. Now it will be consumed for what? It will be consumed for production. So I will write over here raw material required or consumed for production of. So my heading is like this. I'm saying raw material required for production of, or raw material consumed for production of. Now it will be consumed for products. What are my products? A and B. Now, how much A I'm producing in the first quarter? It is 40,000. How much B I'm producing? Sorry. This is sales. I'm sorry. how much A I am producing in the first quarter, 33,000, and how much B I am producing in the first quarter, 52,000. So I'm taking the example from my previous question itself. So we determine production quantity. Now this production quantity will help me determine my raw material consumption quantity. So how much of A I'm producing in the first quarter? 33,000. How much of B I'm producing in the first quarter? 52,000. Now I want to determine how much raw material would be required or consumed. How? So if I want to produce product A 33,000 and you would be given the input output ratio in the sum, like how we are solving question 2, you are given that input output ratio. You would be given input output ratio. Let us say it is given raw material M is consumed 3 kgs per unit of product A and 2 kgs per unit of product B. Let us say this is the input output ratio given. So what is given in the question? That raw material M is consumed 3 kgs per unit of product A and it is consumed 2 kgs per unit of product B. Now this is the production budget or quantity for these products. When I multiply this, so how much M would be required for making product A? 99,000. How much of M would be required for producing product B? It will be 1,04,000. Same thing I'll determine for N. Again, N is the second raw material required for product A, required for product B. How much? Again, product A production is 33,000. Product B production is 52,000. Let us say the question says how much of N is required? 1 kg of N is required for making product A and 2 kgs of N is required for making product B. So in the first quarter, 33,000 of A is required to be manufactured. This is what we determined in our previous production budget. And 1 kg of N will be required. So how much kg of N would be required for making product A in the first quarter? 33,000. Similarly, for product B, 2 kgs of N are required. So total how much N would be required? It will be 1,04,000. So this is how I will determine my raw material consumption. Now, this I'll do for all other quarters also. This will give me my total raw material consumption and this would be in kgs, that is quantity. So for material M and we are in quarter 1, 99,000 will be consumed or required for making product A and 1,04,000 for product B. So how much total of raw material M I would be consuming? See, purchase is different. Huh? I would be consuming, it is 2,03,000 kgs. Similarly, how much of material N I would be consuming? It is 33,000, which I'll require for A, 1,04,000, which I'll require for B. So it is 1,37,000. And this will repeat for all quarters. So I've determined the first thing in raw material, that is my raw material consumption. Purchase I'm yet to decide. So don't hurry or don't mix up. So we have just first decided the first aspect of material. That is the raw material consumption aspect, right? Anybody has any questions in raw material consumption? Students, any questions? Clear till here. Wow. Good rhyming. Sir, could you repeat it? Shiv, I repeated twice. I'll repeat the third time. So I'm determining raw material consumption. How do I determine raw material consumption? Raw material is consumed or required for making production. Now we have two products, A and B. This I will continue from my previous budget. So in my previous budget, I have found out how much quantity of A and B I would be producing in my first quarter. So it is 33,000 and 52,000. As you can see, we already solved this as our first question. Now I'll take the same quantities. Okay. So 33,000 of A I am making in the first quarter. Now, in the question, you would be given that you require 3 kgs of material M for making 1 unit of A. So 33,000 I have to make multiplied by 3. I'll get 99,000. That is material M required for producing A in the first quarter. Similarly, how much of product B is getting produced in the first quarter? It is 52,000. So 52,000 of B. And then in the question, it is given that 2 kgs of material M is required for making B. So I multiplied by 52,000. So I get 1,04,000, which is the raw material M required for product B. So total of raw material M, which I will be consuming in the first quarter, would be my 99,000 for A, 1,04,000 for B. So total 2,03,000. Right, Shiv? Then similarly for N, how much N would be consumed. So same thing, I'll take the production quantity of A and B, which we determined in our production budget at the start. So A 33,000, B 52,000. So 33,000 of A multiplied by how much of raw material N is required for A. Let us say it is given as 1 kg per unit of A. So I will require total 33,000 kgs of N. Similarly, how much of N is required for making product B? 2 kgs. So 52,000 of product B I am producing in the first quarter multiplied by 2 kgs, which is the requirement of raw material N for this product. So total I'll require 1,04,000 kgs of raw material N for product B. So total of N which I'll be requiring in the first quarter is 33 for A, 104 for B. So total 1,37,000 units. Rohan is saying, sir, can we determine consumption by using this formula? Which formula? I think what if you are talking about what I've multiplied. So this is the only formula. There is no other formula, right? Then Anil is saying, sir, while determining raw material consumption, I was confused. Like question is not specific and it is mixing raw material and finished goods figures and confusing me every day. Every day. So you have been doing this since days and years and ages. Anil, see, beta, this is what is the key. As chartered accountants, we need to work on data. And when data is given to us by our clients, it is in huge numbers. Here we are confining ourselves only to budget, and in that also only to 2 or 3 figures of sales and of material. But in real life, when you will be doing this in your articleship, whether you are doing GST work, income tax work, you'll be given so much of data. In fact, many times the client does not know what is required, so he gives everything, even the irrelevant data. And that is why our institute is purposefully giving you some irrelevant data also at times in the question, because it wants to prepare you for those real life situations in which you are going to work tomorrow as a professional. That out of all the data, you should first also understand what is not required and just ignore it. So better, this is where our skill is required, or this is where in our professional work, we have to do the data churning. And obviously with that, in that, you have to be very specific with the figures that you're using. Correct? Rohan, beta, how can this give you consumption right now? For that, you first need purchases. Are you having purchases? Correct? In fact, this is the formula which I'll be using in the next step. So, students, pay attention. Now, the point is, I need to determine how much of raw material I will have to purchase So I determine firstly the raw material that I will be consuming, I will be using in production. Now I go to the next step to determine how much of raw material I would be purchasing. That starts firstly by determining the consumption, what we have just done. Now, once you have determined the consumption, and that is why you'll find that raw material consumption and purchase budgets are generally drawn together. Why they are drawn together? Because they are interconnected. So that is why many times you will find that it is given raw material consumption and purchase budget. You need not prepare a separate budget because the columns and all are same, and in fact it is a continuation. So how it is a continuation? Let us understand. Okay. So I have reached the stage of raw material consumption. So how much of material M required in the first quarter? 2,03,000. How much of N required in the first quarter? 1,37,000 kgs. Now, again, recollect this. This is your raw material account, correct? If you remember your raw material account, from where you determine RMC, that is raw material consumed, what it will have? It will have opening stock of raw material. Then it will have purchase again of raw material. It will have closing stock of raw material, and then this will be raw material consumed. Correct? Now, the same format or the same account will help me determine the purchase. How? I have already determined how much raw material I need to consume. In that, I will add closing stock of raw material and I'll deduct opening stock of raw material. So what I will get is my purchase quantity of raw material. So I want to determine the purchase quantity. And for determining the purchase quantity, I will be using this concept, this format. So I have raw material consumed. Yes. In this, I will add again the same word, desired or expected closing stock. Now of what? Of raw material. So RMC you add closing and you deduct opening. So minus opening stock of raw material. So add closing, deduct opening. Again, same two types of adjustments possible. One, they would be given opening, closing of the raw material also as values. So let us say the value given of closing stock is 25,000, 40,000, 45,000, 36,000. Let us say this is for each quarter they have given. Opening, they will give you for the first quarter. Let us say it is given as 30 and 35. And for other quarters, we know that first quarter's closing will become opening of the second quarter. So that we can find out. Now, either in first case, the figures of stocks are given. This is the first type of question as we saw even in case of production. So now my working is simple. Now I'll find out total raw material purchase quantity, which is here kgs. So this much of M I was supposed to consume plus closing, which I'm expecting to maintain at the end of this quarter, minus opening, which I'm having carrying forward from the previous quarter. So I get my figure of raw material purchase. Similarly, for the other product, which is, other raw material, which is raw material N, I need to consume 1,30,000, 37,000. I wish to maintain at the end 40, and I already have opening stock of 35. So this gives me the quantity for which now I have to plan the purchase. I have to place order with my prospective suppliers and vendors, and I will make purchases. In this, you are also asked the value. So you multiply this by the purchase price that you have negotiated with your vendors, and purchase quantity multiplied by purchase price gives you your total raw material purchase value or cost. So let us say this is rupees 10 per kg given in the question. So my purchase cost would be 19 lakhs 80,000, right? And so on for other material also. So this will be my format for raw material, consumption and purchase budget. So what is the format? Months or quarters as the question requires. Sub columns will be of the materials now. Now it is not necessary that every question will have two products, two materials always. Like what second question we are solving, there is single material, there is single product. But if there are multiple products and multiple materials, you have to be careful with the figures because main challenge is the figure. You should take the right figures. So let us say there are two raw materials, material M and N. So I will first find out the raw material which is required for producing my each of the products separately. So taking production quantity of first product A, multiplying it by the input output ratio, taking production quantity of B, multiplying it by the input output ratio, I get the total raw material required of raw material M. Same thing I'll do for N. I'll get the total raw material required of N. And in that, add closing minus opening both of raw material. Don't mix between raw material and finished good stocks. Don't interchange because if you see in my previous working, the same format applied for production budget also. Sales quantity plus closing minus opening. Similarly applies for raw material also. Consumption quantity plus closing minus opening. So fortunately the format is same. Only you need to be very particular with the figures that you are taking. So this is your entire raw material consumption plus purchase budget working format. Any questions, students, before I take you to the exam problem that we were solving, question number 2? Rohan is asking, sir, question will always specify the period for making budget. Yes, like how we were solving question 2, they said month wise. We'll solve another question, it will say quarterly. Some question may say 6 monthly. So that is mentioned that the data is given accordingly. If the data is given quarterly, you do quarterly. If it is given monthly, you do monthly. Simple. Priyansh is saying easy understanding, complicated solving at times. Yes, but see, I always tell one thing, students. Please keep this in mind. Don't expect that you should get easy things. Why? If these things are easy, why will you be required by the business community? Businessmen needs us because we are capable of handling the most difficult, the most complex, and the most complicated of the workings and the entire business functions. Only we can do that. We are trained, rather we toil hard to understand things which are ununderstandable by many. And that is where we are in a different league. We are a different breed. Chartered accountants, I believe, are not humans. They are a different breed because we toil so much. See, understanding costing concepts, FM concepts, taxation, direct, indirect is not easy for a single person, but we do that. We understand, we practice, we retain, and most importantly, we give exams of all subjects. There are other courses where people give one subject at a time. So they prepare, they study 3 months only one subject, they give that subject. Then they come back, they give the second subject. But we are giving all subjects at one go. So yes, it is complicated, but you should feel blessed when you get things which takes time for you to understand. Because after all these efforts, when you come out with this skill, you come in that special breed, right? Prem is asking, sir, these budgets remain fixed for the full year or changes with time? See, Prem, this is where I explained at the start that there are two categories of budget, fixed and flexible. Right now, what we are doing is fixed. Now in fixed, at the start of the year, I have budgeted one quantity of sales, as you can see. And from that sales quantity, we are preparing all other budgets, production, raw material consumption, raw material purchase. From the same sales, I will get production, and from production, I'll get labor. So that single quantity will determine all other quantities. That is why it is called as fixed. Now, when the year starts, let us say I did this exercise at the start of this financial year, somewhere in February, March. Now this financial year has started. Once my budget is prepared, I will not sit idle doing nothing. Whatever budgets I have prepared now, as the months are passing, I am comparing my actuals with these budgets. Also, I am checking that when I was preparing budget, what I had projected about India-Pakistan war, or Russia-Ukraine war, or the tariff war, or any other things happening which impact my business. I had projected something, I had forecasted something on the basis of which I determined these numbers. Now, if any of those projections, any of those scenarios has changed, and it has changed permanently, see, things are changing here and there, both sides, that is okay. We will not consider every change, because if it is temporary, we'll ignore. But if I feel that some major change has happened, which is going to affect my remaining part of the year, then what I do is I revise my budget with these new facts which I have gained in the first 2 or 3 months of this financial year. So answering your question, whether it will remain fixed, the answer is yes. The budget which I prepared is fixed with that particular quantity. But as the year passes, I keep on reviewing the budget, and wherever I feel any significant change has happened in any of these factors on the basis of which I had forecasted or budgeted these figures, if any of the factors have changed, I will accordingly revise my budget. So for the remaining quarters, I may revise the figures. I'll communicate it to the respective departments that these will be your new figures. So budget is a very dynamic thing. Fixed does not mean it is rigid in terms of numbers. Fixed means that I take one starting point as one sales quantity and I determine all budgets. Flexible opposite to that is I'll take one option, two option, three option, four option, which we'll do in the next class, that I will take multiple options of sales quantity. And for each sales quantity, I'll determine all the figures. So I will have multiple figures for the same financial year. If this happens, this figure. If this happens, this figure. If this happens, this figure. So that is what is flexible budget. So flexible and fixed. Here fixed does not mean fixed which cannot be changed. It will be reviewed periodically in the light of the changing scenarios and the factors affecting the budget. And if there are any significant and permanent changes, we revise. We review and revise our budget for the remaining part of the year. Fine, beta? Good. Now, with this understanding, let us go to our question that we were solving. So we were solving question 2. Now we determine the production part of this question 2. Now let us determine the raw material part. In raw material, what data they have given? So you had this sales data which we used for determining production. Now, again, as a matter of policy, the company maintains closing stock of finished goods raw materials as follows. Now, what is the policy for raw material? For raw material, it is saying how much raw material you maintain as stock. You maintain raw material equal to the estimated consumption for the next month. So for finished goods, we are maintaining 50% of sales of next month, but for raw material, we will maintain 100% of the consumption of next month. Correct? So when they are saying estimated consumption for next month, it means 100%. Now they have given you the input output ratio also. It says every unit of production will require 2 kgs of raw material, and they have given you the purchase price also that will require at the end. So good part is you are having single product because single sales quantity are given, and there is also single raw material because only one ratio is given that 2 kgs are required. It means there is a single raw material. So going back to our question to what we were solving, now I will prepare raw material consumption and purchase budget for 6 months, which is from April 25 to September 25. Same columns, particulars, and months. April, May, June, July, August, September. Now here, sub-columns are not required because there is only single raw material. Had there been two raw material, I would have made within each month two sub-columns, let us say M and N, what I gave example of, right? But there is only single raw material, so no columns required. Now same, raw material required for production of. Now here again you have single product, so I'll write only product. Had there been two, I would have written product A, product B. Now how do I determine how much raw material would be required or consumed in every month? I will take the production quantity of every month. So 12,500, 11, 8,500, 9, 11, 13. So I'll take the production quantities. Now focus on how I'm solving. I'm not solving everything by finding out the figures immediately. I'm firstly posting the data. Now, how I'm posting the data, I'm taking the production figures from the production budget and I'm firstly putting down all the production figures in respective months. This ensures two things. One, when you're looking at one data at a time, like how I think Anil or somebody had a question, key, I get confused. Why? Because we try to look at multiple data at the same point of time. Never do that. Take one data at a time. So I've taken the production quantity, I've posted in all the columns. Now I know how to find out raw material consumption. It will be the production quantity multiplied by the input output ratio given. So it is given as 2 kgs per unit. So the production figure into 2 kgs. Production figure into 2 kgs. Production figure into 2 kgs. This will give me my raw material consumption. So for first month, it will be 25,000 kgs. For second month, 22,000. For third month, 17. Then 18. Then 22. And then 26. Right? Now this becomes the first part of my budget, that is raw material consumption. So I write for production of products since there is only one. And then this gives me my total raw material consumption in kgs. Total means there is only one product. So whatever it comes for one product, that is also total. Now, in this, I will add my expected or desired closing stock of raw material. And I will subtract my opening stock of raw material. So closing stock, add opening stock less, I will get my raw material purchase quantity, which is kgs. So from consumption, I can reach purchase. Now again, first example here, when I was explaining this, I assume that in exam question, the figures of stocks are given. So if figures are given, you will simply put the figures. However, many times in exams, they will not give the ready-made figures. As we are dealing with this question number 2, they are giving you the adjustment in terms of language. So what is the language adjustment? It says how much will be raw material stock. It will be the 100% consumption of the next month will be your closing stock of this month. Correct? This is what the language means. So for April, what should be my closing stock? It would be 100% consumption for next month. So it is 22,000 kgs. For May, it would be again 100% of next month. So 17. Similarly here 18. Similarly here 22. And here 26. Now the question is, how do I determine how much would be my raw material consumption for the month of September? Obviously, it has to be October consumption. And this is where, if you remember, we had determined in the production schedule this extra month, though it was not asked for. So I've already determined that for October, how much would be the production? It would be 13,000. So once I know the production for October, which will be 13,000 kgs of the product, again by multiplying it by the input output ratio, I will get how much would be the consumption. And this consumption I require so that I can find out my closing stock of last month, that is September. In fact, the data in the question was additionally for next 2 months so that you could determine the consumption for the last month, that is September. I hope this is clear. Now, same logic. Closing of 1 month becomes the opening of the next month. And same point, how do you determine opening of this month? Same logic. This consumption of April would have gone to become the closing of March. And whatever is the closing of March will become the opening of April. So it will be same 25,000 because we are maintaining 100% of next month's consumption as our closing. So consumption of April 25 would have become the closing of March, and whatever is closing of March will come back as opening of April. So I finally get my raw material purchase quantities. And then to this, I multiply the purchase price, which is given as how much? Costing rupees 5 per kg. So my purchase price given is rupees 5 per kg. So when I multiply the purchase quantity by the price, I will get my raw material purchase cost. So multiplying this by rupees 5 per kg, I will get rupees 1,10,000. Same for all other also. So the purchase price is rupees 5 per kg. You multiply it, you get your total purchase cost. Correct, students? Have you understood the raw material consumption and purchase budget? Students, is this clear? Students, I'm asking you all. Yes. Yanshi. So first we converted into kgs, then kgs into cost. Yes, you can say so, beta Priyanshi. See, it is not, you cannot learn this because in this example, your production, that is final product, was in units and your raw material was in kgs. So we did that. We first found out production, which is in units. Then we converted it into raw material, which is in kgs. And then from raw material, since we need to find out the cost, I multiplied it by rupees, so it became cost. But it is not necessary, Priyanshi, that this will be always right. It may be the other way around also. It may be kgs first because your final product is in kgs. From kgs, you come to units because your raw material is in units, and then you can make it cost, right? Good. Excellent. Students, now should I take you to a step further? How? Production budget is required, purchase budget is also required, and now even production cost budget is required, right? Read this. I'll just take a 2 minutes break. I'll have some water. Till then, go through the question, students. Now, students, see, the working formats remain same, what we discussed, but the question, the manner of question is very different. This is where we have to train ourselves to understand and interpret what data is given so that we can eventually convert it into our format of answer. So let us read the data. The following information relates to the third and the last quarter, that is the fourth quarter for the year, furnished by the company which manufactures and sells a single product. So that is good for us. Now, what data they have given? Third quarter. So since it has concluded, they have given you actuals. Fourth quarter, which is the last quarter, for which we have to prepare the budgets, the figures are estimates. Now in sales, they have given you the sales value. This is something important. Now, if you see, we require sales in quantities because we find out production budget, which is in quantity. So we need sales quantity so that we can determine production quantity, but they have given sales in value. Now, if it is given in value, how can we go to quantity? That is the question. That is what we will figure out. So sales is given in value. Then they have given you inventory of raw material. Be very particular. When a lot of data is given, you have to be particular. So raw material A, raw material B, kgs. Plus they have also given you finished goods. So finished goods, which is in units. Be very particular with the figures given. Now, similarly, they have given you for the last quarter also. These are the quantities for last quarter. Correct? Opening, closing also, please pay attention what data says. Now, interestingly, you are given the per unit cost data. What cost data they have given? Raw material 10 kgs at the rate of fine. Okay. Now, so raw material A require 10 kgs, raw material B require 5 kgs. Students, am I audible? Students, am I audible? Because there was some net problem here. I got. Okay, I'll repeat. I'll repeat for everybody's benefit. If somebody, let us say there was a lag. So I was saying that you are given this cost data. This cost data is indirectly also giving you the information of your input output ratio. So it has said that raw material A, how much it is required? It is required 10 kgs per unit of your product. So this is the input output ratio given, which we require as now you know for the raw material consumption budget. Plus they have given you the raw material purchase price also. So they have given you for both the raw material. Now for the first time in the question you are given data of labor also, because here you are also required to find out the production cost. So there are two departments, machine department, assembly department. Again here the time is 5 hours of labor and the labor cost or wages is rupees 4 per hour. Here the time is 2 hours of labor where the cost is 5. Correct? And then production overheads for machine shop, it is charged at the rate of 12 per machine hour. For assembly shop, it is charged at the rate of 10 per labor hour. Then you are given the selling and administration cost markup, which is 20% of production cost, profit markup, which is 10% of selling price. Production and sales occur evenly during the budget period. You are required to prepare for the last quarter only because anyways third quarter actuals are there, so it has already concluded. Now what are we required to prepare? Production budget, which is obviously in units, but my challenge is to prepare production budget in units, which is actually the you can say the mechanism. I need sales also in units, but that is what is the challenge in this sum. That is what is the uniqueness of this question. Why I selected this is because here you are not given sales in quantity. You are given sales in value. Now, my first question to you all, how do I find out sales in quantity? Because without that, I cannot find out my production, which is also in quantity. Can anybody help me? See, these are the unique aspects of the questions. Okay. Uh, Rohan, something else, but you are close. Nancy, by opening, closing, how will I get production? Sorry, how will I get sales quantity? See, I need sales quantity in which when I adjust opening, closing, I will get production quantity. Okay, Priyanshi, go ahead, give me more details. So I want to know, Priyanshi, how will I be able to find out my sales quantity? Because without sales quantity, I cannot use the production budget format to find out the production quantity. No, beta Jayendra, opening plus purchase minus closing. How is it possible? Yes, Anil, go ahead. You're right. Anil, Priyanshi, all are thinking on the correct lines. So go ahead. Rohan, you have to also modify what you said. Very good, Mahalakshmi. Excellent. Now start finding out that what you have put. Start even calculating that. So Mahalakshmi has given me a perfect answer. Others, excellent, Rohan. So now you got the trick. Super. But Rohan, again, slightly missing because I want the unit sold. And you are already giving the formula where you are taking units sold. How will I want units sold. Prem, whatever you are suggesting, try doing that. Give me answer with your approach. I don't think we'll be able to get with your approach. Pooja, you are close, but something is not perfect. Nancy, so what? Yes, you are given 20% of production cost. So what? I want sale units, which will be my starting point for determining the next part. Just a minute. Students, I'm waiting for your answers. How will I find out my sales quantity? Because without that, I cannot find out my price or my production quantity. Rohan, I want to find out units sold. Please answer what Mahalakshmi had given me. The answer given by Mahalakshmi is Mahalakshmi gave me perfect answer. I have put off the camera purposefully. So don't worry. You can hear me, na? And don't worry, it is me only. No AI is speaking on my behalf. It is me only. Don't worry. Students, simple. If I want to find out sales quantity, it will be I have sales value given, correct? Divided by selling price. I'll get sales quantity. Will I not? Yes. Will I not? And once I get sales quantity, other things fall in place. From sales quantity, I'll find out production quantity. Production quantity, raw material quantity, consumption, raw material quantity, purchase, then value, right? Correct? See, I repeat, questions you need to interpret. Answers will remain same. Formats will not change. In 90% of your cases, the formats are same. Your skill is interpreting, decoding the questions. Correct? So let us solve. So in my question 3, I'll first determine my selling price so that using the selling price, I can find out units sold, using which I can find out production. Now, how will I find out selling price? Simply, I'll do costing. I have all the cost details, raw material A, B, then labor, machine shop, assembly shop, production overheads, machine shop, assembly shop, selling overheads, administration overheads, profit margin. Adding up all this gives me my selling price. Simple cost sheet format. So raw material A, raw material B, labor, machine shop, assembly shop. This total becomes my prime cost. We all know this. To this, I add factory overheads or production overheads, same, machine shop, assembly shop. I get my production cost. To this, I add my selling and administration overheads. I get total cost. Sir, I'm outside now, so I'm using the hotel network, so it's dropping in between. Okay, but you let me know if there is any sound problem or something, so I'll repeat. So students, I repeat this part, maybe if I was not connected to you all. So for finding out selling price, I'll simply follow the cost sheet format. In cost sheet, I'll add up all the costs. So I'm given raw material A and B cost as 30 and 10 per unit of output, labor cost as 20 and 10 per unit of output. So 30 and 10 for raw material, 20 and 10 for labor. So total raw material cost 40, total labor cost 30. So my prime cost is this 70, correct? Then I will add up my factory overheads or production overheads. How? They are saying in machine shop, the overhead charging rate is at the rate of 12 per machine hour. And how many machine hours are required? I'll require 5 machine hours in machine shop. So 5 hours of machine at the rate of 12 per hour. So this comes to 60. Similarly, for the assembly shop, the overhead recovery rate, charging rate is 10, and it is 10 per labor hour. So 10 multiplied by 2 hours, which is the labor hours in this assembly shop, will give me the overheads to be charged for this. So it comes to 20. So prime cost plus factory overheads will give me my production cost, which comes to 150. Then for selling and administration overheads, it is giving me the ORR of 20% of my production cost. My production cost has come to 150. 20%, it is 30. So my total cost is 180. Now it further says 10% on selling price, not on cost, correct? So we all know this. If it is 10% on selling price, it means selling price is 100. So this is 10. So this is 90. Or as per your maths, if it is 110, 10% means 1/10 of selling price. So it will be 1/9 of your cost. We know all these conversions. So 180 divided by 9 because we need 1/9. Correct. So it comes to 20. So my selling price is 200. Now, once I know my selling price, I can budget the sales quantity. We want it for the last quarter only because that is for which I have to prepare the budget. So budgeted sales value upon the selling price. What is the budgeted sales value? 6,60,000. So it is 6,60,000 upon the selling price, which is rupees 200. So my budgeted sales quantity is, sorry, it is not rupees. It is 3,300 units. Correct? I well understood this, students. This is what we were looking for. Once this is determined, other things will now fall in place as per our format. So this is the first part in my answer where I had to find out the budgeted sales quantity so that using this, I can derive my other budgets. So now I'll start preparing my budgets. So first is my production budget. Now here it is of only one quarter, which is last quarter. So no columns required. It is one single product. So no columns required. I'll simply go by the format, which is budgeted sales in quantity plus my desired closing stock minus my opening stock. All this of finished goods. Correct. This gives me my production quantity, which is in units. Then I prepare my raw material consumption and purchase budget again for the last quarter. Now here I have two raw materials, A and B. So for the last quarter, I'll have two columns, A and B. Raw material required for production of product. There is one single product, right? This will give me my total raw material required, that is consumption, plus desired closing minus opening. Now both this will be of raw materials. I will get my raw material purchase quantity and then multiplying it by purchase price, I can determine the raw material purchase cost. Correct? Students? Perfect. So, how much is the quantity? It is 3,000 300. Now, closing stock. Now here, see, multiple figures are given. So you have to be patient and you have to be very watchful. What is my closing stock of finished goods? 1,000. What will be opening stock? 700. Don't be misled by this word opening because this is opening of third quarter. We want for fourth quarter. And fourth quarter opening will be previous quarter's closing. So these minute things you have to be watchful of. So 1,000 closing, opening 700, right? No doubts, students? So production quantity 3,600. Now this 3,600 I will multiply with the raw material input output ratio. How much it is? For A it is 10 kgs, for B it is 5 kgs. So 10 kgs, 5 kgs. So 10 kgs is 36,000, 5 kgs is 18,000. Again, closing stock, I'll take from the last quarter column, 25,000 and 15,000. Opening stock, I will take from the previous quarter's closing, 23,500, 13,400. Correct? Please cross-confirm the workings so that there is no discrepancy in that. Please confirm the calculations. Calculations are correct, students? Yes. Are the workings proper? No discrepancy? Things okay? Yes. Mahalakshmi, Shiv, Nancy, Anil, all the active ones, Priyanshi. Please confirm. Good. See, now once you have done this, something new we have to study in this question, that is production cost budget, which is very simple, but something new. Before that, let me complete the purchase cost. So the purchase price for raw material A is rupees 3 per kg and for B it is rupees 2. So into rupees 3, this gives me my purchase cost of raw material A into rupees 2. This gives me my purchase cost of raw material B. Correct? So raw material A, raw material B, get the purchase cost. Now something new in this sum is your production cost budget. Okay, Prem has given me the answer, 1,12,500. And 39,200. Please cross confirm, students. Thank you, Pooja, Prem. Okay, now See, what is production cost budget, students? Nothing great. It is just your cost sheet again. So we are only doing for the last quarter. So now I'll again prepare cost sheet, raw material cost A, B, labor cost of machine shop, assembly shop. This will be my prime cost. To this, I add my production or factory overheads, same under the category of machine shop and assembly shop. So I get my production cost. So students, nothing great at all in production cost budget. Now, please remember that our production quantity is 3,600. So production budget will be cost for this 3,600 only. Now you already have per unit cost, material, labor, everything. So raw material is 30, raw material B is 10. These are all per unit cost. Similarly, labor, similarly, overheads. That's it. Now, when you multiply these per unit cost by 3,600, you will get your production budget. Sorry, production cost budget, not production budget. Correct? Complete it. Give me the values. Students, 540 production cost. Somebody has given me prime cost 252. Okay. I'm putting the values which I'm getting from you all. So whatever values people are throwing, I'm capturing here. Others, please compute and confirm. Perfect. So students, I hope you all got the idea of how these budgets are being prepared, production from production material, and then overall production cost. Let me take you to some other questions so that you can solve it by yourself as practice. Now see again, question 4 is interesting. Finally, what we are going to get is same production cost, production budget, same raw material budget. In one of the cases, same production cost budget, but the data given is now again different. So see how the data given over here. So it is given like this. A single product company estimated that the sales for the next quarter would be as under. So first part is simple. They have given you your quarter-wise sales budget. What is interesting is the next part. Now, from sales, we derive production, for which we require opening closing stock. They have given something. The opening stock is 10,000 units. Fine. The company expects that it has to maintain closing stock of finished goods as 21,250. Now, obviously, this opening is at the start of the year. This closing is at the end of the year. Now, interestingly, they have said that the production pattern in each quarter is so designed that it will cover 80% sales of the same quarter and 20% sales of the next quarter. So again, something different in terms of language, right? Now, it further says for raw materials, same opening stock at the start of the year 10,000, closing stock at the end of the year 5,000. And then it has given you the input output ratio that you require 2 kgs of raw material for every unit of your final product. Okay? Now again, the company proposes that whatever is their annual requirement of purchase, whatever is their annual requirement of raw material, sorry, they will purchase that requirement in the first 3 quarters only. So whatever will be their annual requirement, they will purchase it in the first 3 quarters only. And for that, they have given the ratio. This is something interesting. Correct? Prices they have given. Now what they have further said, now opening stock of raw material at the beginning of the year is rupees 20,000. So they have given you the value. Quantities anyways we were given at this year. They've also given you the value. Now, what is required? Production budget, raw material consumption, raw material purchase, fine. And something new. This something new is interesting. What they have said, you have to give me your priced stores ledger card using the FIFO method. What is this priced stores ledger card? It is nothing but, if you remember, we solve FIFO sums in a particular format, particulars, receipt, issue, balance. And in receipt, we have quantity price value. In issue, we have quantity price value. In balance, we have quantity price value. That is what is a priced stores ledger card. And you have to do it by the FIFO method. Okay? So I'll solve for you the production budget. Yes, Sunny. It is a closing stock valuation sum. Same FIFO LIFO. So I'll solve for you production budget. These two, or rather these three, I wish you do it as a homework. So this question, remaining 3 parts as a homework. And first question, which according to me is simple because I've already given you the formats, that also you will do it as a homework. So this question, production budget. Now for production budget, they have given you sales. They have given you opening closing stock. And most important, they have given you the production pattern. Using this data, we prepare the production budget. Question 4. Quarter 1, 2, 3, 4. Particulars. Then you have budgeted sales plus closing minus opening. So you have your production quantity. But this production quantity has to be determined as 80% of current quarter sales and 20% of next quarter sales. So this is the production pattern given, right? See, it is all language driven. You should be able to interpret the language properly. That's it. So we will put down firstly all sales 30,000, 30,500. Correct? Now, opening stock 10, closing 21,250. Opening stock, closing stock. Please be clear which opening, which closing they have given. They have given it for the year. For the year means whatever is opening for the year will be opening for first quarter. Whatever is closing for the year will be closing for the last quarter. I hope this is clear. Now, what is the production pattern? The production pattern says in each quarter, your production pattern is how it is based on 80% of sales for current and 20% of sales for next. This is going to be interesting. So my production should be 80% of current. So it will be 24,000 and 20% of next, correct? So it will be 7,500. Now the total of this two should be my current production, which comes to 31,500. Same pattern. Of current, I'll take 80%. Of next, I'll take 20%. Please keep checking the calculation, students. I'm doing it orally, though my calculations are good, but still. Right? Again, 80% of current, 20% of next. So I have gone purely by their production strategy. Now this I cannot do for the last quarter because for last quarter, I'm not given the next quarter's data. They could have given, but they have purposefully not given. Instead, they have given me some other data which will help me get the answer. Now, since I am having now production quantities for first 3 quarters, missing for the last quarter, but then I have some other data. Now I will try to fill in the blanks. So for first quarter, I have sales, I have opening, I have production. So what I will get for the first quarter as my balancing figure? As my balancing figure, I will get closing. 11,500 is closing, students, as the balancing figure. Yes, if that is correct, then this will become opening here. Right? If this is opening here, again by back calculation, I'm getting 12,250. Please cross confirm, students. Please cross confirm. I'm getting this as my closing balancing figure. This I'll bring here. So 12,250 will be my opening. Now, my closing is 42,000. So 13,000, correct? This 13 will come here. And interestingly, now by my simple atlas, I should be able to find out the production. Correct? Just cross check, please. So see, same chapter, same format of answer, but the question given in a different language format. So the answer has to be worked out as per the given instructions. This is fine, students. Interesting. The nature of, first, see the conceptual part of understanding what are budgets, types of budgets, then the workings, and then applying that conceptual part to different types of questions which are having different types of data. Correct, na? Very interesting. Excellent. So here we would close, we will stop. I hope you all understood this. Complete this question, remaining parts, because that is also interesting. That is also slightly different from what we understood. Solve the first question. And yes, please practice this first part, which is functional budgets and master's budget. Don't solve cash budget. Don't solve flexible budget, because that we are yet to study, which we'll be doing in our next class. Fine, students. So with this, I take your leave. Thank you all. Thank you very much. It was a nice interactive session with good solving speed and accuracy by many of y'all. Others, I'll request to be vigilant. Be ready with all your weapons, your pens, your notebooks, your calculators. If you're attending a class, it should not be that you have just put on your system and you're just sitting in front of the class to view the movie. It should be that you should be ready with your gadgets, with all your study material, your books, your notebooks, so that you are also in a position to solve or mark alongside the faculty. Fine, students. So with this, thank you. Thank you very much. Ajit ji, thank you. Yes, Manish ji, thank you.